Police to track down arrivals last night who escaped airport in defiance of emergency decree. Bangkok, dramatic events in which 166 Thai passengers rebelled against emergency quarantine orders at Suvarnabhumi Airport. The shocking scenes led to the Director General of the Civil Aviation Authority of Thailand issuing an order to halt all inbound flights until April 5 and to notify all flights en route that passengers would be subject to 14 days state quarantine as announced by the PM on Thursday under the 2005 emergency decree law in his live TV broadcast. Thailand has banned all incoming passenger flights in an emergency order for 3 days after a 4-hour standoff and commotion at Suvarnabhumi Airport last night when 166 passengers from Japan, Singapore and Qatar rebelled against a 14-day state quarantine order and curfew. Many complained that they had no prior notification. On Saturday, the Prime Minister ordered that a number of passengers who defied security officers on Friday night and escaped from the airport be tracked down and arrested for defying the emergency decree. The Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha is reported on Saturday to be deeply disturbed at the outbreak of confusion at Suvarnabhumi Airport on Friday night when 166 returning Thai nationals on 5 flights from 3 countries staged a rebellion against the country's tight new policies, including a requirement that all arrivals must go into state quarantine for 14 days. It is understood that several passengers stormed through airport security and defeated perimeter checkpoints to escape the melee. They now face the prospect of arrest and prosecution under the terms of the state of emergency for disobeying a government instruction and also for breaching last night's curfew, which was in effect when the passengers landed at the airport and escaped from the terminal. The PM has ordered national security officials as well as military, police and public health staff to compile a list of all passengers causing commotion last night and to track down all passengers who are still unaccounted for, said a source on Saturday at Government House. Incident began as passengers retrieved their bags from the carousel after landing home. At 2 a.m., the bulk of the arriving passengers finally relented after offering strong and boisterous resistance to security officials and guards at the airport just after they went to retrieve their baggage on landing and discovered, to their consternation, that they were being taken into government quarantine. The 166 passengers were aboard flight JL31 from Japan, which accounted for 31. Flights TG641 and NH847 also from Japan, which carried 34 passengers. Flight Square 976 for Singapore with 44 aboard and 11 on flight GR832 for Qatar. Civil Aviation Authority cancelled all inbound flights until April 5 in an emergency order signed by the Director General overnight to avoid further incidents. The incident drew swift and decisive action from the government fearing similar eruptions. All incoming flights were cancelled by an order signed by the Director General of the Civil Aviation Authority, Chula Sukmanab. The order cited Sections 27 and 28 of the Air Navigation Act and gave as the reason efforts to control the COVID-19 virus. The emergency order halts all incoming flights to Thailand except for military planes, cargo planes and other aircraft not carrying commercial passengers. The order also gave notice to any aircraft already en route or in flight that passengers will be required to be quarantined for 14 days and would be taken into state facilities on arrival. Section 9 of the Emergency Decree Act of 2005 was cited as authority for the order. Some passengers returning from the U.S. traveling via Japan among those involved in the tense scene. It is reported that some of the returnees on the flights were also from the United States, having made connections in Japan and Singapore to get home. The 166 Thai nationals comprised, for the most part, of people who simply wanted to be at home in the current crisis gripping the world. The travelers, some who had traveled on a long flight from Japan and even longer on prior legs, were looking forward to reaching home when they were hit by the shocking news that they faced 14 days as a guest of the state. New measures announced by the PM on Thursday. The new measures were introduced on Thursday when the Prime Minister made his speech announcing the 10 p.m. to 4 a.m. curfew. One of the main drivers of the virus that has been identified in recent weeks has been Thais returning home from infected countries. On Monday night, a Thai Muslim man returning from Islamabad in Pakistan died on a southbound train and was later reported to be infected with the COVID-19 virus. Passengers complained that they had no notice. The 166 passengers late on Friday night complained vociferously that they had no prior notice of these arrangements and that this was an unacceptable infringement of their liberties. The gathered crowd, on the verge of becoming a mob as tensions threatened to boil over, were then told by a security official that they were not at liberty to leave the airport building, first because they were required to obey the instructions of authorized personnel as they were subject to a quarantine order, and secondly that a curfew had come into force from 10 p.m. The crowd used their smartphones to record the announcement made by the senior police officer and made angry retorts as they were briefed by officials. Security officers meanwhile blocked their progress within the airport. Chaos and standoff at the airport. The shocking news produced a chaotic scene at the airport as the arrivals fell into a state of panic and refused to comply. The security officer explained that he was simply taking orders from the government and that they had no option but to comply. It is understood that at one point, the crowd made for the exits, and this produced a state of commotion which some of the passengers used to escape the government quarantine. These are being listed and will be tracked down on strict orders from Government House and may face criminal prosecution. The strict measures announced by the Prime Minister on Thursday remain in place until April 15 at the earliest. Passengers finally relented at 2 a.m. and were taken away in 4 buses to the naval base in Chonburi. At 2 a.m., the passengers finally calmed down and, in the face of determined officials, finally agreed to be taken into quarantine. They were escorted onto 4 waiting buses which took them to Satahip Naval Base in Chonburi. The tumultuous scene had frayed nerves on both sides of a standoff that lasted for 4 hours. Perhaps at that point, the shocked and jet-lagged passengers simply wanted to put their head down for the night. It may not have been at home, but at least they were back in Thailand. Further reading. Nationwide curfew announced on TV by the PM as the government steps up virus fight. 24-hour curfew in the works as the government puts curbs on national travel with checkpoints on roads. Emergency could be extended as more people present themselves at hospitals due to the coronavirus. Another record rise in infections on Monday as top virologist predicts widespread transmission in Thailand.